Get ready. You're about to experience the life science effect. The most influential players in biotech, pharma, and medical device, bringing you their insights and inspirational stories. Are you ready to boost your career? Ready to set your medical innovation in motion? You have arrived at the right place. Every week, another industry leader, more insights, more inspiration, and tips you can implement right away to make your mark on the world. Welcome to the show. Today I'm joined by Nathan Glass, who's the VP of Product Development at MedTech Launch by Genesis Plastics Welding. Thanks for joining us today, Nathan.
Thank you.
Tell us more about MedTech Launch.
Thank you. MedTech Launch is a product development division of Genesis Plastics Welding. And Genesis Plastics Welding is a contract manufacturer of medical devices. Mm-hmm. We focus on RF welding of films and fabrics. We noticed that our customers came to us sometimes with needs for design services, and we weren't set up for that to handle it in the way they needed to. And as we listened to those customers, we decided, okay, MedTech Launch should be something where our customers come to us with their idea, their specific need, and we help them find the solution for that. A lot of times that revolves around initial research and planning for the product development. It also includes design and development services, prototyping. It includes regulatory support and quality systems, all the things that sort of tie together and are required to get a product from the initial concept onto the market.
Without revealing any specific clients or client products, I know you wouldn't anyway, but without doing that, can you give me an example of the type of product that somebody might have invented that they might come to you with? Are we talking about software products? We're talking about physical. I guess the plastics would imply it's probably a lot of physical products. What kind of product are we talking about here?
Because of the relationships we currently have in place through Genesis Plastics Welding, we do see a lot of clients that have things that, for example, inflate or are fluid retention bags. We also have clients that don't have those types of products at all, but most of them tend to be physical, mechanical devices currently.
Are these inventors, engineers, doctors, large companies? What kind of company or client base are we talking about here?
Some of our clients are large OEM medical device companies, but some of them are also physicians and inventors and smaller companies that may be in a different field but would like to get into this space. They have either a technology that they would like to adapt to this space, or they would like to move into their own product. And so one of the growth opportunities for us has been building systems at MedTech Launch that help all of these different types of customers. Who you're talking to on the other end of the phone or face-to-face or via email may have, 3 or 4 different managers or leaders at their company that they need to talk to before a decision can be made. Yeah. And in some situations, you're talking to the owner of the company themselves, and they want to go right now.
Yeah, right.
That's a great idea. Let's do it right now. So there's this range of customers, very exciting.
So when did you decide? Like take me back, and we'll come back to MedTech Launch in a minute. But let's talk about you for a second. When did you first know that you wanted to get into the medical care, life sciences, medical device industry?
I think when I found out what biomedical engineering was, found out that was a thing, it clicked.
Okay. When did you find that out? What caused you to find that out?
When I was younger and sort of trying to figure out what career path and education path I needed to take, I was working in a hospital pharmacy, and I think that environment was very influential in my life, not only professionally but personally, because it allowed me to see patient care, and it immersed me in a culture that was patient focused. And at that young age in my life, that never went away. And I look back to those days and remember that I was working with professionals that were helping patients directly or indirectly. They were very intentional with their actions. They had processes and procedures to follow, and conversations centered around the science. And all of this was very exciting to me. So I knew that there were certain things that weren't in my skill set. I wasn't going to be the best caregiver at the bedside, but I wanted to participate. And as I was looking into educational options, I discovered biomedical engineering was a thing. There was an undergraduate program at IUPUI.
Okay. Yep.
And
what hospital were you working at this time?
I was at the community hospital or community health network. I think I was at East at that time.
Okay, all right. And what age range?
The 18, 19.
Okay, all right.
Age range, yeah.
So shortly after high school.
Exactly.
Gotcha. Okay.
Exactly. Yeah.
All right, and then you noticed you said biomedical or biomechanical?
It's biomedical engineering.
Biomedical engineering at IUPUI. Now, for people who may not know, what is biomedical engineering?
Biomedical engineering is the application of engineering principles to the human body, essentially.
Notice how I said for people who don't know, because of course I know, right? Of course I know what it is. No, I'm kidding. Okay, so engineering principles to the human body. The reason I said are biomechanical. I've always gotten these a little bit confused. Is there a difference between biomechanical engineering and biomedical engineering, or are those kind of the same thing?
You could nest one in the other.
Okay, all right. So biomechanical maybe is like focuses on like knees and things, or joints and things that you would normally, the screws and all that kind of stuff. Whereas biomedical is broader. Is that fair to say?
Yes, that's fair to say.
Okay.
When we were studying physics, our examples were based out of the biomechanical side of the human anatomy. So looking at bones, looking at that sort of thing. Whereas other engineering students in other classes were looking at bridges.
Okay. Yeah. So you go to IUPUI in the
biomedical engineering
program, biomedical engineering program. All right. Now take me forward from there. So you knew you wanted to be in the healthcare space somehow.
Yes.
You knew you weren't going to be a nurse or a doctor or somebody who sees patients, let's say.
Yes.
So this seemed like a good way to get into it. So what happens next?
So I knew, even heading into the program, I knew that I wanted to be someone who designed medical devices.
Okay.
So the concept of being able to spend your career designing and developing things and then seeing those things in use had always, even as a child, fascinated me. That's just a really interesting way to impact the world. And when I saw that this was a thing where I could impact patient care while also being able to develop something you could hold, a widget, that I could see in the world someday, that was exciting. So when I came out of school, I focused on industry, job applications, and networking to try to get into the product development space in medical devices. Yeah. And I did, and worked for someone, came right out of school and worked for somebody who was immediately very passionate about the quality management system side of medical devices in the development and in the manufacturing, and that was a second very fortunate positive influence for me.
Great. That was at a company, and this person was your boss? Is that what you're saying? Okay.
Yes.
All right. Are you comfortable sharing who and where? Or?
Yes, that was Christine Cook at Catheter Research, formerly CRI. Yeah.
Okay. Here in is that?
Yeah.
Here in
on
town?
The west side of town. Yeah. I think they have changed their name, but at the time it was CRI.
Okay. Probably ought to get her on the show. Huh?
She would be a great person to talk to. Yes.
Christine Cook.
Yes.
She's on notice. You could send her this episode and say at minute I don't know, about 10 minutes in, you start talking about her, right?
I can do that. I don't know if she's going to yell at me or not.
She will.
But yeah.
She's still over. Is she still at the same company?
No, she is. There's a long story, but she now has her own consulting company.
Okay.
She works for herself, but she was there for many years and went through several other roles, but we still stay in contact, and she is friends with my wife, for example. So.
Excellent. Who is also in the medical device industry, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Excellent. Wow, it's like a family affair.
It is. Our dinner conversation is very interesting to us, but probably not to anyone else.
Right. Especially your kids, right?
No, they have no idea.
Did you guys meet somehow maybe at IUPUI? Or
we did meet at IUPUI
okay.
in the biomedical engineering program.
Excellent.
Yes,
wow,
yes.
that's fantastic.
Yeah, so we've been able to share
our
our
industry
passion.
could use, well, you've obviously a mentor and a wife. So you've had a mentor who was a woman and a wife, obviously, and I think our industry could use more of that influence, more women and more of that particular influence. I should do a whole podcast on that, right?
Yes. One of the things that was different about the biomedical engineering graduating class was it was more of a 50-50 split.
Oh, nice. Okay.
At least my graduating class.
Yeah.
I don't know if it has stayed that way, whereas opposed to the normal, what you hear maybe in the media or see in your own personal life, it's more tilted toward the male side.
Yeah.
So when folks talk about that, the differences in the genders, and I have a different perspective because I've spent my career working for a woman who influenced me, and equally with the wife who works in the field. So, I think that learning from them is very important.
That's good to hear. That's good to hear. Okay, so from this influential beginning, at some point you looked around in the industry and said the world needs a MedTech launch. Now, let's fast forward to what was going on either as a microcosm with what you were doing or in the industry in general that you thought we needed a MedTech launch in the world.
I've always enjoyed the product development side. At the time that I came to Genesis Plastics Welding, it was a engineering manager role. It was focused on process development, but I do also enjoy the product development side. And we noticed that there was a need that our customers needed today. But in building the tools that were required to help those customers, we said, hey, we can help more than just our current customers. We can help other folks as well. Yeah. So let's keep that in mind as we build this whole system.
So it's now been around a year since you started MedTech Launch. What are some of the challenges you faced? What are some of your big lessons learned since you first started?
Lessons learned are some were positive and that, hey, people really do need our help. And some of them, like for myself, in every phase, I try to grow personally in this way. It was more the ambassador role, being in front of folks and telling people about what we do. In previous roles, that was somebody else's job. I was the one that was doing the things and helping other folks answer questions, but I wasn't actually answering the questions. So some of that has really helped me think about. I've been able to realize a few opportunities in that growth.
That's an interesting one. As engineers, I'm chemical engineer from Rose-Hulman. Speaking of women, I graduated in 91. We were still not co-ed yet, and went co-ed in 95. But as an engineer, I mean, we didn't really learn that. You're using the word ambassador. I guess we could say marketing and sales kind of stuff. And really, what I've learned is it comes down to getting your message out in the story that, yes, we are here to help, right? Yeah, I mean, we're selling services. So ultimately, I guess it is selling, but as a small consulting firm, BPM, who's the presenting sponsor for this podcast, it's one of the challenges we face because we're really good at managing projects. We're really good at organizing large, complex projects and getting things done that other people may be having challenges getting done. So that's a huge benefit to people, right?
There is, and there's also in the technical side of things and regulatory and quality and similar, when someone asks a question, you answer the question asked.
Yeah, yeah.
But when I'm looking at folks who are ambassadors for their company or their ideas and watching them in media type situations, I'm observing them not answering questions directly. So to me, that signals that there's a different skill set for those who are successful in that role.
That's a good point.
And I need to learn about that.
Yeah, yeah.
Not that I believe in answering questions by not answering questions, but if that is the state of the art or if that's the performance, how do we learn about that, and then how do we improve it?
I don't know that I'll ever learn that particular art, but I think let me ask you about the role of believing in your product or service and then just authentically talking about it, right? So do you believe that? So in other words, if I ask a question, so let's say I asked a question, so I have this medical device, I'm holding up a pen, and I've thought of a way that this can, be a medical device and I can sell it and it'll be great. And I want to release it in 3 months, right? Don't worry about it. I've already, I'm already able to make it, right? I just need you, Nathan, your company, to help me do the paperwork that's needed, whatever the government needs to be done, right? And I want to launch it in 3 months. So how can I launch it in 3 months? Answering that question directly and just saying it's a pipe dream, there's no way you can launch it in 3 months, right? There's too much to do. There's too much that you probably haven't even thought about. Isn't really going to help them that much, is it? I mean, if you just say, get out of my office, I can't do that for you. So, but authentically knowing what you're good at, how do you answer the question? That's the question I've asked is, how do I get it launched in 3 months? The straight answer is you can't, right? But how do you go beyond that? Like, what kind of thing would you tell me if I'm asking you, how do I get this? What am I really asking, right? I want this to be a medical device. What's it going to take to make that happen, right?
Yes.
So how would you go about answering that question if I'm a potential customer?
What is the actual question though? That's
so
the
that
question
I guess
I'm
that's what I'm
hard
getting at. The question sounds like, how do I get this launched in 3 months, right? But isn't the real question like, what do I not know? Like, I don't even know enough to ask the right questions, right? So
Right.
I'm just basically coming in saying, I have this thing that I think could be a medical device. What's it going to take?
Before I can answer a question like that, I have to know a lot of things. So if anyone was to ever answer that question directly, even if they said, no, you cannot do that, then they're making some assumptions along the way.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, it's important when getting to know a customer situation that you ask a lot of questions and challenge your own assumptions. Mm-hmm. You just like you can't know any person without getting to know that person first in any real meaningful way. You can't know what a person's dream or goals are for anything until you talk to them, ask questions, follow up with further questions, try to get an understanding for who they are, what they're trying to do, why they're trying to do that, and how they expect it to go.
What do you think the most, like, what is one example of a very important question that you would ask me if I came to you with that problem of wanting to get a device to market? What's your first question or two that you would
How do you expect this device to be used?
I love that. I was thinking, like, I knew you would have the right, like the best question to ask. And in my head, I was sort of thinking it probably has something to do with whatever claims you're going to make about it, right? So it's how would you like it to be used? We talked with Lynn Tyler, who's over at Barnes & Thornburg, and that was one of the questions I had for him. Was like, how do you know if something's a medical device? And it was all around, well, what are you claiming it can do,
Yes.
right? So that's a great first question. I didn't mean to try to stump you there, stump you there, but okay. So big lesson learned and big challenge is going from engineer to ambassador. So looking more toward the future, how are you guys helping? I know you can't reveal any details about your current clients or anything like that, but how is what you do for them, how does that help them ultimately?
One of the things that we're seeing coming out of, even though we haven't been a division for a long period of time, we are seeing results coming out of some of these projects. And one of the more exciting things to see is them rolling into pre-manufacturing activities. And when I say that, I mean we're making prototypes for some folks that are production similar. You know, we are getting to a point where some of these things look and feel like a patient or a clinician is going to see it, feel it, and that's exciting. That's a different phase from the early ideation, concept prototyping, that sort of thing.
And ultimately, how does what you do help patients? I mean, obviously, if somebody invents a medical device that cures or diagnoses or somehow treats a problem, that's going to help that patient. But considering your role, what's the benefit to the patient of a MedTech launch?
Yeah, you touched on a big part of it was, the patient can't be benefited from a device that's not available. Yes, that's true. But our mission and what we have to do is improve on what's currently out there. So we want to make a device that is more reliable, want to make a device that's easier to use, want to make a device that's safer. When there's the opportunity, we will also include, hey, we want to make a device that's easier to be accessible. So maybe that's a cost thing. Maybe that it's made in such a way that it's more readily available, that sort of thing. So getting it out there more.
Great. So we're going to take a short break. And when we come back, I have some wrap-up questions. But before we do that, is there something you wanted to talk about, but I just didn't ask the right question?
No, I think you've asked some very excellent questions, so thank you.
Yeah, so apologies for that. I'm kind of, like I told you in the beginning, I'm not a professional interviewer, and so if something pops in my head, I have no idea how it's going to go. It just comes out. I can't stop myself sometimes. Okay, we'll take a short break. We'll come back. I do have some follow-up questions about what the future looks like, and then we'll wrap it up.
We are very proud to have the support of the Indiana Health Industry Forum here at the Life Science Effect. They have been with us since day one. IHIF provides guidance and leadership on public policy issues that contribute to innovation in the health science sector, deliver therapies to patients in need, and further the development and growth of their member companies. IHIF also works with the government and other groups to support specific initiatives and legislation. Also, if you need a connection in the health industry, give them a call. Go to ihif.org and they will hook you up. They have been a tremendous supporter of ours, so thanks again to the Indiana Health Industry Forum. Go check out ihif.org and support them like they support our life science community. Now, back to the show.
Welcome back to the show. We're still here with Nathan Glass, the VP of Product Development at MedTech Launch. So, Nathan, before we get too much further down the line here, what are some good ways for people to follow up? What are the websites for the things that you're working on?
So I welcome people to medtechlaunch.com. That's a great website. We're adding new resources there every day. Also, Genesis Plastics Welding is an excellent website. There's resources on there.
Great. So check those out. We'll put the links in the show notes for sure. Before we wrap up, is there a book that has had an influence on your thinking lately?
The book recently, and a lot of people are talking about it, is Bad Blood. I have read that one. That one's very interesting to me.
We'll put a link to that one in the show notes as well. So we talked a little bit off the air about it. It's fascinating. So what is Bad Blood about? What's it cover?
Bad Blood is about Theranos, which is a company that started as sort of a Silicon Valley startup company focused on in-house lab services, miniaturizing the lab services, and miniaturizing the amount of blood required for those executing those lab tests.
So I was working at Covance Clinical Lab Services when Theranos first started to become well-known, okay? So one of the things that we were focused on is reducing the amount of blood or the amount of whatever bodily fluid, whatever specimen needed to be sent in for a couple of reasons. One is it's pretty invasive if you got to get 5 tubes of blood out of somebody to do some diagnostic testing. That's that's rough on that person. Anybody who's had blood drawn knows that. The other reason is just shipping costs and managing these samples. You have to store them someplace. There's just a lot there. And so when I first read, there's this company out there saying 1 drop of blood and we can do all these tests, right? I took it to some of the MedTechs that I was working with and said, does this sound right to you? I mean, has technology really gotten that far that fast? And they just kind of looked at me like, not that I've heard. Maybe somebody's invented something I haven't heard about. But so from the beginning, the MedTechs I was working with were kind of like pretty skeptical about this. So it turns out that it was well-founded skepticism, right? So what ends up happening then? The book covers the saga from the beginning, or?
Yes, and it covers the saga from a journalistic perspective, where it is telling you about the characters and who did what and who said what, and the series of events. The science is something that is not well understood by me. So that's one of the things in my own time I'd like to investigate that further, that what you were saying, where does the physics break down in this idea?
Yeah.
Why was it that it was so well accepted that this is something that's possible when insiders may have known, no, really, we don't think this is possible with today's technology? Mm-hmm. How did that happen? That's just a real point of curiosity for me.
Are we in danger of more of that happening? I mean, if you look at Amazon, I'm not saying Amazon, Google, Uber would do anything like this, but certainly as they get into the healthcare space, seems like there could be potential for more startups saying, okay, if these tech giants can do this, I'm going to be the smaller startup person and go do this, and maybe not understand this. Was this a case of the CEO who was pushing this company didn't understand the science and she really thought maybe it could happen, or was this they knew it wouldn't work and it was sort of a fraud situation? And could it happen again? I
think that fraud situations and terrific, huge fraud situations have happened, will continue to happen in different industries. This will happen again, but I hope it doesn't happen again the way this happened. Yeah. One of the things that I think helps us prevent that from happening is really getting to know and understand the questions that you're asking. These were human beings that made decisions for a variety of reasons that we cannot understand from reading one book. Yeah. And maybe, even if you met the person, you wouldn't necessarily know and understand. You may think, based on your interactions or watching an interview or thinking about the system entirely. I think that we should continue to be skeptical. We should avoid magical thinking, and we should keep faith in our culture of quality and patient focus. If something doesn't seem to make sense, we really should investigate that, and we should be public with that. We should be transparent about that. I think that part of the story that really shocked me was the company's use of legal resources to crush dissent. And that is something that it runs counter to the life sciences culture in general. We tend to focus on science and seek excellent research, and we are open to questioning, and that's part of our growth. I think that with the tech industry and some of that culture where they've experienced a lot of success of things happening inside of a screen. Anything you can type in a program, you can make happen on a screen, and you can get it out very quickly. And if there's bugs, you can fix it in real time. That sort of thing. That's a little bit bringing that culture into the med device space or life sciences space may help the med device and life sciences space innovate in certain ways, but it does not mean that we should ignore the ethics or bypass the systems that we have in place to keep folks safe.
Yeah, that seems like that's going to be the challenge of the next few decades. Is how do you apply some of this rapid? I don't know if it's. Sometimes I think of it as I'm a project manager, so I think of agile project management and the concepts of minimum viable products and things like that.
Yes. Getting
things in the hands of customers as quickly as possible so that you can get that real-time feedback and improve the product quickly. How do you do that with something that might kill somebody if it doesn't work right? Or it might misdiagnose a disease or whatever, right? I think that's the challenge of the next decade or so is, and maybe that's where the bringing the Amazons and Googles and Ubers of the world in the Silicon Valley thinking to the Silicon Prairie. Oh, maybe that's where the Midwest really can play a big role, because we sort of have this natural skepticism and sort of this not so fast mentality, right? It's sort of we work hard and we really want to learn and we really want things to be better, but we kind of are natural skeptics as well. So
not all innovation needs to be disruptive.
Yeah.
Some of the most important innovations are incremental, and I think we should continue to celebrate that.
I'm writing that down because that's going to be a quote that you're going to be famous for. Not all innovation needs to be disruptive. That's a tweetable comment right there. And controversial, I would say. I'd say a lot of people are saying, well, you're saying it's disruptive innovation's not good?
No, I did not say that.
Right.
But I'm sure people would disagree with me, and that's okay. But
that's kind of what you're saying. Dissent is good, right?
Yes, that's okay. There are different applications for different ideas.
Yes, absolutely.
And in some cases, application of disruptive technology may not, or disruptive innovation may not be the best.
So if you want to follow the soon-to-be famous Nathan Glass, because of that quote right there. Let's remind everybody again, what's the best way to keep up with what you're doing? The websites, right?
Yes, please see us at medtechlaunch.com, GenesisPlasticsWelding.com. Anyone can connect with me on LinkedIn and message with me there as well. So I look forward to hearing from folks.
So go to GenesisPlasticsWelding.com or MedTechLaunch.com or find Nathan on LinkedIn. Go to the show notes for all of that. I'll also put a link to the book Bad Blood, and maybe we could start a conversation around that. In the meantime, thanks for listening. Nathan, thanks for being on the show. It's been great.
Thank you.
You have just experienced the life science effect. If you liked it, be sure and leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. And more importantly, tell your colleagues, tell your boss, tell your friends. It'll make you look smart, and maybe it'll even get you a raise. Thanks again to our presenting sponsor, BPM Associates. Set your medical innovations in motion. BPM helps life science companies design, manage, and execute their most complex projects. What effect will you cause? Thanks to today's guest and to all of our guests. Who else should I be talking to? Send me an email at steven.vincent@bpm-associates.com. That's all for now. Thanks for listening, and go make something amazing happen.